going on? Welcome to the Build series. Thanks for the applause. I'm Kevin Kenny. I'll be your host today. And we're about to be joined out on stage by a multi-time Grammy Award winner who the New Yorker has called the most potent singer of her generation. She's nice enough to stop by the most potent talk show in New York City, the Build series here today. Let's give it up for Joyce DiDonato. Joyce is wrapping up in the back, taking some photos backstage. She'll be out here in just a few seconds. But first, let's take a look at Joyce herself explaining a little bit more about her new album, Songplay.
Songplay is going back to my origins as a beginning voice major and voice student. The traditional ritual of your first voice lesson is you walk in, your voice teacher hands you this ratty score with pages missing and the cover falling off, the 24 Italian art songs. Caro mio ben and sei tu mami. Usually, we singers end up loathing and hating these songs. Craig Terry, my fantastic friend and pianist, had this idea to go back and revisit these pieces, but with renewed musical fervor and intention. We go a little bit more in the jazz world, and the jazz world comes a little bit more into the classical world, and we fuse together our styles. So to put out a recording that is brimming with joy, really unapologetically, and celebrating the joy of music, it's the gift of my life. I love it. I love that.
Please welcome Joyce DiDonato.
Hello.
We were just chatting during that clip. You're like, I feel hip when I come on the stage here at Build.
Totally. That's not a word that we opera singers always get to use. Unfortunately, I don't know why, but you walk in here and you're like, I feel hip. Cool.
It's funny you almost lead with that, opera not always thought of to be a hip genre of music. You as a kid growing up, how early do you take to opera? It started with what, these Sunday afternoon cocktail hours?
Yeah, so that was jazz, that was Glenn Miller. My brother was in the basement listening to like Deep Purple and AC/DC and all of that. My sister was upstairs listening to Jesus Christ Superstar. I mean, that was my life. And my dad would try and get me to listen to opera, and I resisted it. I didn't get it. And I didn't hit me, the enjoyment of it, until I started singing it. I went to school to study to be a music teacher. And so I was taking classical lessons, and I thought, whoa, this stuff is amazing. And so I discovered opera sort of from the inside out.
What did opera feel like singing it that maybe it didn't feel like, or you couldn't connect with hearing it?
Wow, nobody's asked me that question before. That's really good. It's like... It's like, so all of opera is based on the breath, right? We don't use microphones, so we have to project our voice into a theater that seats 4,000 people. And so to do that, you have to really connect to the power of your breath. So what it feels like when you sing opera, which is also music that was written 200, 300, 400 years ago, oftentimes, still being written today, but a lot of what we sing is old, like Mozart and the titans of this world. So it feels like I'm going into the center of the earth, like back in time, and I'm like pulling all of that history and all of that emotion and all of that breath and because in opera we're singing about life and death and morality and love and hate. I mean, the most exaggerated, biggest emotions of the world. So it feels like I go into the center of the earth, and when that breath goes through me, if it's a good night, it's like going into the cosmos.
You talk about, no, I love that description.
Just that.
Yeah. You talk about kind of reaching into the earth, as you just put it, reaching, these songs being older and so old, and you're reaching back almost through history. Do you feel like you're reaching back at times through your own history when you're singing opera?
Oh, no question. Yeah. No question, because a lot of times when you learn a song, that's a real... fingerprint in time or a time stamp of your life. And so I still sing things that, with this album, Songplay, I'm singing things that I learned when I was 20, 21.
Right.
This was from the years ago. And so I remember that girl that had all of this inside of her, but this wasn't trained yet to put it out. And so I remember that, that brings me back so much. Yeah.
This is really, I've heard you describe the album as a return to your origins there when you first started singing this. They talk, people talk about falling in love or finding their purpose in life. And like the minute they find that special someone or that purpose rather, it's like, oh, it's so obvious. This is what I was supposed to do the whole time. Was that how opera was for you? Was it instantaneous like that?
Music was.
Music was.
Music was, yeah, and theater. I was the high school music geek, and I did theater and choir in high school. And I remember it was a play, Harvey, and I stepped on stage and I was playing the old lady. I wasn't even the pretty lead, I was the old character girl. And I walked on stage and I just felt at home. And I would sing with the choir in high school and I felt at home. And my leap was being a very insecure, very introverted, insecure girl when I was 13, 14, 15, dreaming of a life on the stage, but certain it could never happen to me. So I would sing in the quiet of my own room, with the hairbrushes, the microphone, and I would dream of it, but not really, because it surely couldn't happen to a girl from Kansas, was my thinking.
Who,
I was so wrong.
hey. Who were you emulating when you were doing that in the mirror at that age? Like
Barbara Streisand, Bette Midler. My dream was to be a backup singer for Billy Joel. I mean, if he still wants me, I'm around.
You're in the city to do it.
I know. So I mean, that would have been the dream, to be a backup singer for him. My big thing was, I don't know how to love him from Jesus Christ Superstar. I would sing those songs and I would feel it, and those were women and singers that just seemed to really connect to raw emotion, but still beautifully sung and real vocals. And so that's what I really identified with.
You mentioned feeling a bit introverted as a kid, and then really finding yourself feeling at home on the stage. It's a common tale with performers and entertainers and artists of all sorts of genres and disciplines. But what do you think that is? Because conventional wisdom would say, well, you'd be far more self-conscious on a stage in front of all these people judging you than you would in everyday life. But it's never is the case. Well, why do you think that is?
Another great question. It's a couple things. Number one, you're given permission on the stage to get outside of yourself. Right? I mean, I grew up in the Midwest, Prairie Village, Kansas, Catholic family, all this kind of stuff. There was a lot of should, shouldn't. So you're like, okay, I'm allowed to do that, but not that. Okay, and you kind of fit into that expectation system around you. And there were no rules on the stage. In fact, you're supposed to break all the rules, especially as a mezzo-soprano. I play boys. I play women. I play queens, and I play wretches. I get to do all of this stuff and get out of myself. The other thing is, I think when you don't know who you are, or you think who you are is not sufficient, that being able to step into somebody else's shoes and feel the self-confidence of that character and pretend that it might also be yours one day, it taught me a lot about how to move through life. My best teacher has been music in the theater in my life. And I think it was that I don't dare do it as myself because I'm not there yet, or I'm not worthy, all of that stuff, those teenage things we deal with. But I can do it as Romeo or as Rosina, and I loved how I could find empowerment through other people that way.
I got a two-parter for you, okay? Give me the character and then the song that taught you the greatest lesson. Because you're talking about, learning things through these roles and learning things through art. So give me the character that maybe taught you the most about something you maybe aspired to be, and then the song.
Explosion in my brain. There's so much. There's so many. I did a character, Dejanira, early on in Hercules by Handel, and she's a character that starts in madness, or starts in depression and ends in madness. And I remember doing that, and I thought, madness is not a big stretch. Madness is just that decision to go over. I don't know what that taught me, actually. I mean, because I haven't quite gotten to that point yet in my life, but it was just sort of that fragility of mental stability. And in a way, on stage, when I went into that place of madness, she's rocking at the end, I oddly felt free, like really free. I thought, God, she's left all that burden behind. That was really interesting for me about letting go of certain mental constructs that I have, certain ways of rigidity that I look at the world. That was interesting. I sang Rosina a lot, Barbara of Seville. It's a teenage girl who rebels against everything around her, and she's fiercely free. And I loved, early on in my career, getting to explore that because she basically says, I'll be everything you think I'm supposed to be, but don't mess with me, because I'll, So as a woman in opera, I've been able to be a feminist all along in all the roles that I've done. It's kind of extraordinary.
Is your art still teaching you things to this day? Like you just performed, we'll get into it, but last night, great show in New York, it was live streamed for everybody to watch at home.
Yeah.
Are you still learning things each and every time you perform?
This is why I have the greatest job in the world. It's, I can't learn it fast enough. And the more I'm in it, the more rushes in and runs in, because so much of my job is trying to simplify the things. And I think as you get older, that idea of how do you simplify that's a constant lesson, and you can constantly go more in that direction. So much of this album in particular is about love. I say one of the reasons I take Italian pieces and modern pieces and mash it up, but it's essentially the same song we've been singing for 400 years, and I'm assuming we'll keep going for another, hopefully 400 and more years, is, I want love, I don't have enough, how can I get more? Why don't I have enough yet? Where's the love? I love. And that's kind of what we keep searching for. And that's another thing for me to keep always striving for in my life is, can I be more loving? Can I open to more love?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have so much to learn.
Well, and you touch on the parallels there, but that's a huge part of this record is you finding these parallels between older works of art and then newer works of music. And they commonly say like that's a trait of mastery, that you've mastered art when you're able to sort of identify these parallels within your discipline. Do you feel as if you're getting close to sort of mastering your discipline? No, not even close.
No, I mean, because with art, there's never an arrival point. There's never a landing like, now I've got it. Because, like I say, there's always, in opera in particular, there's this element of truth, of humanity that has to be there. It's why it's often considered the greatest art form. Oftentimes it's terrible. But when it works, it is sublime. And it's kind of divine in a way, which is where we get the word diva. Right? So it's sort of heading towards the divine. And in that regard, there's no mastery. It's just constant search and constant going in deeper and going deeper, delving deeper into what it is. More vocal freedom. I mean, as a technician, you're always looking for more connection to the breath and more freedom so that the voice arrives unobstructed and healthy and fresh. And that's a constant search because my body is changing all the time. My body's my instrument. So it's a moving target a lot of times. What I do feel I have is experience and a certain amount of wisdom that comes with experience and working with astonishing colleagues. So I have greater capacity to express everything that I want to express. Right. So I'm always looking for more expressive potential.
And probably just incredible intuition, right, at this point? I mean, just performing, no?
Yeah. I mean, one thing about this is we've assembled some astonishing, legendary jazz performers on it. And we've got Chuck Israels on the bass. He's 82. Recorded with Chet Baker and Bill Evans and all the greats. Yeah. And our drummer, Jimmy Madison, same thing. All of the greats, Billie Holiday and all this. They have this, you could call it mastery, but they would not call it mastery. They're still looking to work on it. But they have intuition and they have trust they know how to just let themselves go, versus that 25-year-old that's like, okay, it's not right yet. I didn't get it right. And we put ourselves in straitjackets, So there's a relaxation that comes in with that. Yeah.
Totally. I want to ask you about the sort of intersecting worlds of classical music, opera music, and then jazz music. All influences, if I'm not mistaken, fair to say, appear on this album we have here to our side. I think maybe a mainstream fan or a casual fan, they may just group all those three disciplines of music, those genres of music, I should say, into one sort of umbrella or bucket. But I'm sure they're very different. And how do they interact?
That's so funny that you say that, because in my world of classical, people think these worlds are very far apart.
Like,
oh, no, classical doesn't belong with the jazz and all that. And in fact, for example, the Baroque music that I sing of Handel and all of that it's written almost as it was a jazz chart today, because there's not full orchestration and all that, and all the instrumentalists or singers are expected to improvise. You get kind of a skeletal structure. It's the same structure as in jazz.
Right.
A lot of the standards that I chose on this, the American songs, were written with kind of classic vocalism in mind when they were first written. You know, you think about the movies of the 40s and the 30s, all those Hollywood actresses were expected to sing kind of classically anyway, or in a classically trained voice. So I deliberately chose pieces like that wanted real vocalism with it. And they're all about love. All the songs are basically this kind of same sentiment. So it seems to marriage and fuse together really well.
Yeah. No,
organically.
It certainly does. It sounds great. We're going to turn it over to the fans in just 1 second, but I did want to talk about these shows you're doing. You just played New York last night, and it was live streamed online, and I understand it's going to be rebroadcast, I believe, March 24th.
Yeah.
Do you know where we can check that out on March 24th if we missed it last night?
All Arts. Well, first of all, it's going to still be online on Medici TV, which is who streamed it, and they'll keep it up, I think, for a month or something like that,
great.
30 days. And then on March 24, there's this new streaming platform by WNET. It's free, as in no money, free.
His ears just perked up.
And they're streaming dance and art and theater and all of this it's an extraordinary initiative. So it broadcasts here in the New York area, I think, on March 24, and then it will be available on the streaming platform. You can get it on your phone, you can get it on your Apple TV, all of that kind of stuff. It's All Arts.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then
which is the solution to all the world problems that we have today in the world. All Arts.
Amen.
There we go.
And then March 10th, if there are still tickets available, you're playing Princeton.
Yeah,
that's sort of the last date of tour, right?
It is for the time being, but we're going to take this around quite a lot and get it into Europe and bring it back around the States again. Yeah, I hope to live with this project for a while.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Let's get to our first studio audience question. It'll come from right over here.
Hi.
Hi, hello. First, I just want to say thank you. As a singer myself, I am such a fan. And I just want to thank you for your work and your life in the world. It's meant so much to me. I noted that recently the album for Great Scott came out, and I had the privilege of seeing it twice during its run in Dallas, and I loved it so much. So I wanted to know what your perspective is from working on it, and where you see it going into the world now.
Oh, I love that you saw that. This was a new opera written by Jake Heggie that premiered at the Dallas Opera, Great Scott, and the plot's slightly convoluted to explain it, but I play a singer, an American singer who specializes in bel canto. It was such a joy to do a show, an opera, and hear the audience roaring with laughter. Because I told Jake at the beginning, I said he wanted to write an opera for me, which is kind of incredible. Thank you, Jake. And I said, please make a comedy, because we need more comedy in opera. And he said, okay. And then a week later, I wrote back. I said, no, forget that. I want a mad scene. I want a proper mad scene, which opera does pretty well. And somehow he managed to do both, which was pretty cool. And what I love about it, it's Terrence McNally did the libretto, brilliant Tony Award-winning playwright, and it's a real love song to the world of opera. So I hope it has a long life. I hope I get to sing it again to bring that celebration of why people love opera into the world. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks.
Great question. All right, Joyce, thank you so much for stopping by. Where can we keep up to date with you, though, on social media?
Everywhere. Instagram,
Everywhere.
Twitter.
What's your name?
Joyce DiDonato.
Oh, nice. You keep it simple.
I keep it simple.
I like that.
Yeah.
Some people come on the show and it's like, I can't figure that out. There's a number in there somehow. There's an underscore.
Joyce
That's great.
DiDonato. Yeah.
All right, guys, one more time for Joyce.
Thank you, guys.